On July 11th, Analekta Records released the 11th CD in its monumental project to record the complete solo piano works of Franz Schubert, a journey that has become both a musical and personal odyssey for Canadian pianist Mathieu Gaudet. Titled Variations, this new album features Schubert's second piano sonata, the 12 Valses Nobles, and the 4 Impromptus D935. Since 2019, Gaudet has been immersing himself in Schubert's tuneful, expressively rich, and deeply human sound world, releasing 2 albums per year. Now past the halfway mark, his interpretations have been praised internationally, positioning him amongst today's foremost Schubert interpreters. Gaudet's musical pedigree is impressive. He received his Bachelor of Music degree from the Conservatory in Ramouski, Quebec, and then a Master's of Music from the prestigious Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University. He then studied in Toronto at the Glenn Gould School, where he was a student of André Laplante, Marc Durand, and John Perry, along with master classes by Leon Fleisher. Following that up with a Ph.D. in performance from the University of Montreal under Paul Stewart. And if that wasn't enough, between the ages of 27 and 35, he also earned a medical degree and today balances his concert career with work as a physician in Quebec. And joining me here over Zoom to talk about his Schubert recording project, this latest release called Variations, which is our choice for Canadian Classical Recording of the Month, I am joined by Mathieu Gaudet. Hey, Mathieu, great to see you and great to meet you here over Zoom.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So I have to say, I've been following this project since the album started being released in 2019. It's just so great. We play your Schubert recordings here on the station all the time. Take me back to 2019. How did the collaboration with Analekta start?
Right. So about the Schubert pieces, I had been playing all of them in concert, actually, in a Montreal hall called La Chapelle Historique du Bon Pasteur, a very delightful hall. And it was a pretty intense project. It was 3 concerts every year. And I was going through all 20 piano sonatas and all the major piano works. So the Impromptus, the Wagner Fantasy, and so on, the Klavierstücke and the Moments musicaux and all that. And as I was going through the project, I realized that I cared very much for this music and I was never getting tired of working on it. And it would make such a good recording project. You know, of course, Anton Corti, one of my mentors, and somebody I look up to so much and tremendous respect for him. And I really love his recordings. And he recorded a lot of Schubert sonatas, but he actually hasn't recorded all of them. He hasn't really recorded the huge pieces and the unfinished pieces and so on. And so I thought it was good time for another Canadian pianist to sort of take position and actually go through all the corpus, you know. And this is something that has been done, but there aren't that many complete recordings even in the whole world. You can basically count them on one hand, maybe one hand and a couple more fingers, sort of thing, you know. And nobody in Canada, and maybe I'm the second one in North America. So I thought this was really worthwhile, and this is how we decided. You know, I sort of went through the steps of finding the label and the funding and the producer and the hall and put it all together, and then decided to go for it. And it's been a great ride.
Mm-hmm. And I read somewhere in an interview that you'd done where, I mean, you'd been playing Schubert since you were a teenager, but you really didn't delve into his music until your master's degree. Can you talk about that and like when the light bulb went on for you and why, and how you realized that this is a sound world you want to be in all the time?
Yeah, totally. So the first serious piece I learned was the first Impromptu, Deutsch 899 in C minor, which I played when I was 15 or 16. And then there was already a hint that this was something very special for me. The fact that I was willing to spend the time and energy to sort of get the right sound for those amazing harmonies and the right feel for a legato and how those triplets unfold and how the chords unfold. And that was something that I suppose you don't see that much in people the age that I was then. People mostly play Liszt and Chopin and Beethoven, and they like it when it goes fast. But I like to try to create that special sound, that special universe. But then that was it, and I didn't really know the sonatas then. And then when I was in Peabody with Julian Martin, I sort of started to explore the Schubert sonatas, and the first one I learned was the G major, which is one of the most evocative. It's very pastoral. It starts very slowly and this kind of like landscape. The first movement is 20-minute long, and so that was really when the bulb turned on, to work on that piece, and then more and more and one more, and eventually everything, because there's no bad Schubert. There's just great Schubert and great Schubert that's a bit younger.
The project, it's going to consist of like 15 or 16 CDs. The discs are not recorded in chronological order. Can you talk about how you decided to group the sonatas and piano pieces together? And you must have done it in advance. Like, you're putting out 2 recordings a year. Can you talk about that process and how you decided what pieces would go on what disc?
Yeah. So just to clarify things, the original project was to record 12 CDs of all sonatas and major piano works. Then in the course of doing it, I asked myself, why not recording all of Schubert piano music, which basically after that is mostly dances, a few more CDs of dances. So I was planning to record those, but at this point, I think I will hold on to that thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the original project of 12 CDs. Actually, they're all recorded. I recorded volume 12 in December, and it will come out in 2026. And at this point, there are no plans yet to finish the complete piano works because, as you might know, Canada Council sort of ran out of money in recent years. There were issues. The pandemic, when the pandemic hit, there was lots of money for artists, and that helped a lot. But now that, things are in a crunch financially in Canada, it's a bit harder to get grants. So I put a hold on recording the whole piano music, but I'm still very, very proud and glad that I managed to record all 20 piano sonatas and all major works, and plus more, like a few set of waltzes, variations, fantasies, all that. So basically what's left is mostly dances. And I think eventually if funding comes through, I'll be able to finish it. But to answer your other question on how to put them together, the whole idea was that on every CD, there should be a maturity work. And so I sort of worked backwards, the last 3 sonatas would be on the final CDs, the impromptus also. And then there are also like these other big sonatas that are not the final ones, but are still like 45-minute works, like the G major I talked about, but the D major as well, the big A minor. And so I picked one big piece for every of the 12 CDs. And then it was just a matter of mix and match with the other younger pieces, which was a lot of fun because, which keys work well together, how can you make a big, nice contrast, and so on. So this is a lot of fun to plan ahead and to think, oh, wow, in 5 years, I'm going to be recording this. And it goes by so fast. Like, I can't believe it's like more than 6 years ago that I planned everything. And now that's it. It's all in the can already. So lots of fun. And I'm pretty glad how this turned out. I think every CD is fun and offers both like a sort of a staple work that people will know, but also another piece that people might not know that is very worth discovering. And that was the whole point, right?
This latest disc, Variations, you've got the second piano sonata, a sonata he wrote when he was 16, and then you've got the Deutsch 935 impromptus that were written 1827, the year before he died. Is there a difference between interpreting early Schubert at the piano and late Schubert?
Yeah, there's a huge difference, actually. This is a very good example, right? That Sonata number 2 is almost never heard. So those early pieces, they're more like they're very inspired by Mozart and a little bit Beethoven and Haydn, but Mozart was really Schubert's favorite composer. And so you hear that. You hear the clarity, you hear the counterpoint, you hear it's very classical in form. I mean, it's always classical in form, but these early pieces, especially, you get the little formulas and everything. So the touch needs to be a bit lighter. The rhythm, the bouncy rhythm is more important than in the later piece where it gets more philosophical, and it's wider in scope, and so you need to take more time to really milk every note. In those early pieces, it's more this classical sort of, okay, let's go, and here there's a turn, but now we go for a while and so on. But the technique is different, the approach is different, so it is interesting. But you do get also those moments where suddenly the harmonies are really unexpected, and that you sort of need to take time to go into it. So it's sort of a hybrid, it looks to the past, but looks to the future, and looks to what Schubert is going to become as well. So they're very interesting to tackle, I would say. And also another point is that a lot of them are unfinished. That number two, for example, the first three movements are finished, but the last movement is unfinished. And so at that point, there's also a little bit of not rewriting, but finishing writing to do, which is fun, because you sort of have to decide what kind of coda am I going to play here, what kind of a transition is it going to be in the recap, and so on. So yeah, it was really a fun project.
And I mean, you did essentially sort of recompose the final movement of that second sonata. Did you have like any sources, like anything to sort of turn to sort of help you out?
Yeah, totally. I definitely didn't reinvent the wheel. So I basically based myself on two major editions. One is by Martino Tirimo on Wiener Urtext, the Red Books for the pianist. And this is really amazing scholar works where the notes at the end of the book are so complete. And so you can really know what Schubert wrote, when he finished writing, where it stops, and what the major questions are. And even more important is the edition by a pianist that I really admired that passed away a few years ago. His name is Paul Stewart, and he recorded a lot of forte pianos as well. And in his edition, you can really hear all the experience and the love for that repertoire. And so both finished them, right? And it's a little bit like a formula because Schubert finished writing at the end of the development, and usually so it's just a matter of rewriting the exposition and then modulating at the right spot. So when you've played a lot of classical stuff, it's a little bit what to expect, but still there are small differences where they both give me ideas, and I sort of pick and choose between both, and sometimes I actually write my little transition myself. But I have to say that especially the edition by Paul Stewart, that was huge inspiration for my recordings. I really admire his work and his recordings, and I was really glad to follow in his footsteps.
I have to say, I love the Schubert impromptus, both the D899 set and the D935 set. They're amazing. The structures of them are pretty straight ahead, but when you listen to them, like there's such a world of dynamics and colors, and in the piano, the chordal voicing has to be perfect and the touch has to be right. When you were learning them and then recording them, what things did you have to keep coming back to think about when you were recording them?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I feel like in our age, like in 2025, one of the huge hurdle that we have to pianists face is, I call it inflation. It's inflation. It's musical inflation. And what I mean by that, and you can hear that especially in pieces that go fast, like Rachmaninoff and Beethoven, is that we get so used to a certain kind of playing that to be exciting, we feel like we need to be even a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster. And so I feel like recording after recording, things are even, it feels like we're even more on steroids and on cocaine, and things are like the rhythms have to be sharper, and the tempo has to be faster, and everything has to be, of more clarity and so on. And so even though this music is definitely not about that, right? I mean, it's definitely about singing. There are still moments where I feel like this applies to, and so what I had to do is always take a step back and ask myself, am I serving the music right in taking that tempo and doing this, you know? And so for me, it was always in not trying to be as exciting. It was trying as to be as singing as possible. That was always my goal. And then you realize that this music has so much to tell you that it's really about how much time can you take. And so that was my biggest challenge. Sometimes if I was not careful, even by, you know, wording that I was taking this approach, I felt like to fall into the trap was to play a little bit too fast and not to take time to really go into all those modulations. And like you said, this voicing of the chords and taking time of, you know, singing the harmonies and when there was something new happening to take time. And so I have to say, sometimes I would record for a whole day, go back to my hotel room. And what I do is I sort of record everything on my iPhone, you know, so that when I go home, I can, even if it's not the right sound, I can listen what I did. And I would, after like 5 minutes, I would think, oh, no, that's not exactly what I'm going for, you know. And so the day after, I would tell my producer, okay, we need to do this again because it's just a little bit too much on nerves. And I really want this to unfold so naturally. And then I would do it again, and then it was right, you know. And so many times it would take me 2 shots because it's somehow there's something about walking in a recording studio where, you know, you're like, oh, this has to be the right shot, right? And just this little extra pressure makes you play just a tiny bit too fast. And I find that you can hear that on recordings. And this is something that you don't get on old recordings like Willem Kemp, for example, or these old pianists where they didn't have anything to prove. And so they just played, they just talk to you, you know, and this is what I'm going for. I'm going to tell you a story. We're not in a hurry here. Come with me. I promise you the trip is beautiful, you know, and this is always what I was going for, and especially in the impromptus.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading, it's interesting, the coda of the F minor impromptu was composed by Marc-André
Wait,
Amelin.
which one? Oh, the first one. Because
the first one. Yeah. It was composed by Marc-André Amelin. What did he do, and why did he feel that he needed to sort of recompose the coda?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I actually haven't discussed it with him. What I did is I asked him the permission to record it, but I can only guess. But what I think happened in his mind, and Marc-André Amelin is such an interesting mind and such a great pianist, you know, and a composer as well. I have tremendous respect for him, and of course he's from Canada. He's one of our jewels, pianist from Canada, one of the many that we have, right? But Marc-André, I think, felt that this is such a great piece. This impromptu is so stunning in many ways, you know, that there's something a little bit sort of disappointing in the way, you know, you get like the B part that's repeated, you know, in the different key, and then the first theme comes, and then it's like this coda is very abrupt. It feels like it should keep going just a tiny bit longer to make justice to what happened over the last, it's a very long piece, you know, over the last 12 minutes or something. And so this is how I perceived it when I heard his recording. And I was really touched by that. What that told me is, listen, you guys, I love this piece enough. I think that here we can go a little bit more, you know. And I decided to go for it because at this point, my view of Schubert is that I think if we do it for the right reason and with the right respect, he would agree with it, you know, and of course that's totally controversial, but in a piece like this that's been recording, you know, hundreds of times and by such amazing artists as Radu Lupu, probably my favorite, but also Mitsuko Ushida, Willem Kempf, all those pianists.
Ridgewell Paresh.
Paresh, for sure, one of the best. So we have the same taste. So I feel like it's okay, you know, it's okay to say, oh, you know, I'll give you something a little special here. It's very respectful and like it, don't like it, but it's out there now. So I took position, but I felt like, you know, Marc-André Amelin was definitely a seal of excellence, you know, to sort of a guarantee of quality.
You You've also recorded the 12 Valses Nobles on the Variations disc. Schubert had a fascination for the waltz. Apparently, he wrote more than 100 of them for the piano. And these waltzes they're less than a minute. They're these like little, character pieces. Why did you choose to include them on the recording?
Well, I do find that they bring such a nice interlude to those two big pieces that are the Sonata and the Impromptus. And like we said before in the interview, my goal was to record all of Schubert's piano music. And so you'll notice that starting at album number 4, 5, 6, I started to use some of the waltzes and those small pieces, to it's not so much to fill the CD, because there's no need to have a full CD, an hour is plenty, but it's more that for me, I thought the CD was more interesting with a little bit of the waltzes. Those Valses Nobles, they're really nice because they're maturity pieces. They're stately and a little bit pompous, but at the same time, you still hear the magic of Schubert in some of them, right? In the minor ones and in the slow ones. And it's so much fun to go from like the yapapapa, and then suddenly in number 3 or 4, you get like the singing one and this little pain here. And, that it's really great for a pianist to navigate these waters. It's like being on a kayak going down a river, and for a while, it's just, you're just chugging along, and then suddenly, whoa, it's a little turn and little wave. So yeah, they've been great fun. And really, if I can manage to get the time and the funding and the energy to go through, I would love to record, because all of Schubert waltzes, even the huge pieces, there's always something to learn and to like in them. So that'd be great. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Mathieu, this has been really great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, I know funding is an issue, but I got to ask a question. If you can finally record all the solo piano music, any thought to recording any of the music for piano four hands? I mean, I'd love to hear the grand duo recorded by you, or maybe the military marches. I mean, and with today's technology, you could record both parts. Have you given any thought to that?
That's a very good idea. I know. I didn't think about that. That's really thought provoking. I feel like that would be in a way easier, because I find that I've played now a few concerts of four-hand music with colleagues, and those are great colleagues. But the truth is, I have such a clear idea of what I want to do that I still haven't really found the perfect match. Yeah. And so I definitely would like to record the four-hand music. As you know, there are amazing masterpieces. The F minor Fantasy.
There's all that Hungarian
G minor stuff. Yeah. The Lebensstürme, the Grand Duo in C major, the variations. There's so much stuff, and a lot of it is maturity music, and it's absolutely masterpieces. So, yeah, definitely. I'll give some thought to what you said, because with today's technology, it would definitely work. And I'm sure I could find a producer that would have a good time, doing that with me. But actually, it's not just the forehand music. It's the piano trios that I've played quite a bit by now that I would like to record. Those are incredible pieces. Yeah. There's the violin music, the fantasy and the B minor rondo. There's quite a bit. I recorded the flute variations already, but if I want to go through, there's so much. And eventually even the Lieder, but that's a totally different story, because there's so many of them. You need to find the right singer, and that's almost like 10 years of your life right there. That's so I don't know about that, but definitely the forehand music, the piano trios, the violin music, I'm looking into that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Mathieu, this has been a real treat to talk to you today. The latest release, titled Variations, is just marvelous, as are all the other previous Schubert recordings that are now out on Analekta. Thanks for taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. This has been a thrill.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, and I was so glad to hear that people in Winnipeg were listening to some of my music. It's really heartwarming, and Thank you so much for that. And thanks for the
Mm.
interview.